What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode here of the BlockHash Podcast, your number one resource for all that is happening across the emerging tech space. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe wherever you listen to or watch the show. Today, I'm joined by the CEO of COTI, Shahaf, to talk about what they are working on here in 2025. We're going to talk about a number of things in terms of the problems they aim to solve, encryption, a recent article that I saw in regards to COTI as well, and their overall roadmap, and we'll get some other pointers from Shahaf as well. Man, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you on today. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, pleasure's all mine. Happy to have you here. I'm excited to have a conversation with you today about COTI. Before we do, we'd love to get a little bit more background on yourself, if you don't mind sharing maybe your story and what kind of pulled you into this space. Everyone always has a very interesting story, given it's not a traditional industry and it's still quite young and vibrant. So what attracted you into this space and it made you want to be a part of it?
So, in 2006, I started a company called Web3. Very early on, a few years before the for the Bitcoin white paper. And reason being is that it had nothing to do with crypto. Yeah, it was a marketing company. We just call it Web3 because everybody was talking about Web2. But funnily enough, just before this company was acquired by the IPG group, um, I was introduced to Bitcoin in 2012, done nothing about it. And then in 2016, it was reintroduced, got super interested about this. The company was acquired, and then I ventured into crypto to begin with as an investor with the proceeds of selling my company, but quickly enough became a founder again. And in 2017, we started COTI. So, in 2017, I thought, whoa, we are so late to this game. And it's 2025 now. It feels now people call you an OG, and it's funny because for me it's still day one.
Yeah, 2017's pretty early on. It might not have felt like it at the time for some people, but when you look at it today and you look back then, you're like, wow, 2017 felt like 20, 25 years ago with how much happens in this space.
When you join a queue, you're always last, right? But then time goes by, and it goes by very fast.
Exactly. I remember the first time I got into this space too, back in like 2013. And it feels like forever. I don't even recognize the entire space anymore. The space didn't even exist back then. It was like just Bitcoin, Litecoin, I think Ripple, XRP. Maybe there was one other. I think Stellar was around back then, but that was it. Like Doge, there wasn't anything else. There was no ecosystem. There was no DeFi, and stable coins really weren't a thing quite yet. Tether was like barely, gaining ground and traction. And yeah, what an interesting time to look back on for sure.
Interestingly enough, Tether added FUD even then. I remember, everything is about to collapse with Tether. Yeah.
So what's COTI all about in terms of your guys' core mission? Like what problems essentially are you guys aiming to solve across the Web3 space and ecosystem?
So, very directly, I would say that we want to solve privacy on Web3. Now, what does that even mean, right? First of all, we need to agree that privacy is important, and it's not just a luxury. It's a fundamental human right, but it's also a very basic requirement, an essential requirement for a business that wants to, protect its client data, its own, trade secrets and competitive edge. I guess everybody should agree that this is super important if you want to do anything on chain. Now, if that is important, the problem is that as it stands, the design of blockchains has bypassed this, right? Most blockchains are transparent by default, and all the data can be seen, in its transit, and then when it's logged, and it's visible at all time and in perpetuity. It means that everybody can see amounts, token types, send and receive addresses, and data within the transactions. Everything is visible, and people think, whoa, that's transparency, and it's a great idea. And it's a great idea until it's not, right? Because everything that is exposed on a public blockchain is exploitable, and down the line will be exploitable when not just specific companies has access to surveillance data, but everybody will have it with AI. So this, in a sense, has been the reason why in the last 10 years, most research has been focused on scalability for public blockchains and solving privacy for public blockchains. So a lot of the math has taken some time, but now it's ready. And what we do in COTI is essentially solve this problem, the lack of privacy in Web3. So we've introduced a network that introduces, programmable on-demand privacy. So when you build something on top of COTI, you decide who gets to see what. So it means that the data remains private, but it can be verified, it can be audited by who you deem necessary. And it's great news because we do that with a high performance. It's very inexpensive to do so, and it means that we not just will see the same primitives or the same dApps that we see today, but with privacy, we will see new things as well that you can't really do without privacy.
Yeah, it makes total sense, and I totally agree with you. There's so many great things about blockchain being a public ledger, but at the same time, privacy is a huge part of our economy. And, if someone's building a dApp at some point to send free flowers and an anniversary gift to my girlfriend, and I use it, and then she looks on the chain, she sees that I got her a surprise. What was the point of the surprise? It's a very simple example, but that scales up to what you're doing at the government level, or if your company has very important IP that they want to put on chain, but they don't want a competitor to have, or maybe it's healthcare data, right?
Your flow rate in this example will see everything that you ever bought from everyone. Whatever vote you made in whatever DAO, no matter like what, your girlfriend will see the flowers that you sent to previous girlfriends.
That's very problematic.
Yeah, all of that, right? And so the other florist that competes with this one will see how much revenue is making from who, right? And who are his suppliers, and how much he pays his salaries to everybody. So there is no way that this will ever work, right? I'm surprised we have what we have right now in crypto, but with lack of privacy. So public ledger means that anybody can verify it, right? And say this is correct. We don't need an intermediary. We don't need a bank or a central agency to say what the truth is. We can verify the truth. It doesn't mean that it needs to be transparent. So that's kind of like the most interesting part about this. Can we find a mathematical way to look at a black box and say, whatever is said to be the content in this box is correct without needing to peek in? So the short answer is yes, we can do that now.
Absolutely. And do you think that that's kind of partially why there isn't more usage and adoption maybe of blockchain right now, given that sensitive data really is a huge part of our economy and our global ecosystem? Maybe that's something that kind of holds back people wanting to build things.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's everybody's waiting, for the trillions of dollars from institutions to flow on chain. A recent JP Morgan article, research, quoted the lack of privacy is the number one problem for these institutions to go on chain, right? We don't feel it now because they have, they are still very early on and tackling other things as well. So everything that is done right now is kind of like, sandboxes and small things. We're part of these programs as well. But once this goes massive, of course, it's an issue. Like they have duties. They need to protect clients' data. They need to protect investors' data. They can't put this stuff on chain, no matter what they think. So of course, this would be that is a major issue. And other things, we kind of like grown to not expect privacy on a blockchain because everybody feels that hey, it's just an address, it's not my name, like I'm not associated with it. Well, but the reality is that forensic has got so much better that it's very easy for just people with money to kind of like say, hey, this is the person behind this address. But this will be much easier as time goes by with AI, and it means that everybody will have this access. So this will become a serious problem. And the standard will be that I am protecting my identity, my data when I go on chain.
Absolutely. And then how is COTI doing this in particular? Is it through like end-to-end encryption, or is there another method that you guys are kind of tapping into?
The end-to-end encryption is the outcome. The way we do that, like under the hood, we have a very nifty encryption called goblet circuits. So it's a cryptography that was invented 20 years ago, but only the last 2 years was repurposed by a team of researchers in Soda Labs. Uh, to be put on chain and be used as in blockchain. So it secures on chain computation. So all the inputs, all the outputs are fully encrypted. So nobody can see what's coming in and out of a smart contract unless you give them the right to do so. So you can say, hey, these addresses, the chain analysis address or my auditor's address, that address can actually verify and look at the data, but nobody else can, right? And this makes business logic. So we do that using goblet circuits, and it's very fast and very lightweight. There has been, of course, the privacy. The idea is not novel. Everybody understands that this is important. So to date, we've seen either anonymous blockchains, Monero, Zcash, etc. This is illegal because you can't do financial transactions and stay anonymous. So that's problematic. It doesn't work. And we've seen, private layer ones, but the problem is that it means that people need to move their liquidity around and fragment the ecosystem even more so. So they don't want to do that. Or we've seen implementations that are either very slow or very expensive or both. So what we do is actually very fast and very lightweight. That has been the research that the guys in Soda Lab did. So it's about 1,000 times faster and drastically more efficient than other privacy technologies out there that people recognize, like fully homomorphic encryption, ZK, etc. It means that we can do that in production, prime time for users right now. And this is, why we have a mainnet that is super fast and allows for all of that to happen at, fractions of a cent per transaction.
Interesting. And then do you guys have any use cases maybe that are notable that you could highlight, like as an example of maybe some dApps in COTI's ecosystem? Like, are these primarily are these wallets right now? Are these dexes? Are these games? Like, what are you seeing kind of crop up the most?
So yeah, there are, essentially everything is better if you allow for privacy, even if the user can say, "Hey, I want this transaction to be private." So any dApp will be better. But what's very notable, I would say, maybe three things. One is confidential payments. So essentially, your private USDC, private USDT sent around, and obviously stablecoins are all the rage right now. So imagine that the stablecoin payment rail is secured, and it can be private. So if you pay for things with crypto or with stablecoins, then this transaction is confidential, right? So you need to solve this, of course, on the token level. We can do that, and then on the wallet level, and this is something that we're launching right now with MetaMask. So that's one big thing. The other one is, as we've mentioned earlier, everything around tokenization and real world assets. Um, the institutions are still on the sidelines, and then they demand confidentiality to their transactions. I've mentioned the JP Morgan recent research. So this is another big thing that we're working on right now, including two CBDC projects, the digital euro and the digital shekel. Another thing is confidential DeFi. So, DeFi has a huge problem that privacy solves because on an open blockchain, all trade strategies are not confidential and people can just copy you. But it's also, exploitation, MEV, front running, all of that. So there's a hidden tax on everything DeFi that people pay not knowingly. So, and it's billions of dollars that are extracted. So if you encrypt transactions in DeFi end to end, that nobody sees your move until it's finalized. So no front running and no data leaks. So that means that DeFi is more profitable and more secured for everyone. We have the first perpetual DEX launched on COTI. It's called Privex, prvx.io. Does three amazing things. First, it has a centralized exchange liquidity because it's intent based and takes its liquidity from Binance and Bybit. It has trading agents, so you can launch an agent, tell him what sort of trade strategy you're looking for, and it will trade for you, even when you're asleep or when the opportunity rises. So that is also amazing, and there's a launchpad for that. And the last thing is that it adds privacy and security. So when you trade, nobody sees what you're doing. Of course, pools, prices, all of that is not private. That needs to be transparent. But things that you can protect and should protect, you can. So prvx.io. There's also like an ongoing trading competition right now over there. So I would highly recommend it. They've done $25 million in volume in just, the first few days of their launch. So it's I like where this is going with them.
Well, I want to ask you a question. It's kind of in relation to what we've been talking about here a little bit, but a little bit more in terms of stable coins, maybe RWAs, tokenization, stuff like that. I've talked with a lot of people about this recently at some conferences I've been at and some other episodes too, but I think it's kind of fascinating. It's a little philosophical, but I think something that the space really needs to focus in on, and that is balancing this idea of privacy with compliance, like privacy and transparency, but more so privacy and compliance, especially with things like stablecoins that are really hot right now. And now you have TradFi getting into the space, and everyone wants to build their own stablecoin, and they want to get into tokenizing real world assets and creating RWAs. What do you think eventually goes into that? Is it a solution like COTI that allows for privacy, but also maybe there's permissioned ways to allow for compliance in certain degrees, so it can comply with a state level, government level, federal level? So I feel like that's a logical next step, I think, for this space in terms of balancing the two and really bringing adoption forth.
Totally agree. And balance is exactly the right word for that, because fully anonymous blockchain is not compliant. It doesn't work with anti-money laundering, zero financing, all of that. It doesn't work, and the rules are not going to change because of crypto. They're not going to change. So you can do completely anonymous transactions. Now, a completely transparent blockchain, the reality is that this is also not compliant because it infringes other rights that people have and duties that institutions have for privacy, like HIPAA, GDPR, etc. So the reality is that you can't do fully transparent, you can't do fully anonymous. So the solution is abiding the regulation. It means that there is such a thing as compliant privacy. It means that whoever by law requires to verify and audit something should be able to do so. And you can actually do that with COTI quite easily. Like in the smart contract, I can decide that this address and that address can actually view the transactions because I'm okay. I'm not trying to hide something illegal. I'm trying to keep my privacy, which is my legal right. But this is something that people and it's when I know that when I say that it sounds very trivial and very like, yeah, of course, but people don't really wrap their head around this completely, and they don't demand the privacy that they should get by law and now technically by design. So yes, I think the future. We will not change the laws because these laws has a lot of logic in it. So I think that is not going to change. The technology needs to align itself with the law of the land, and it's not just a US thing. It's a global thing. The rules are quite similar everywhere. And if we want to operate, if Web3 is to be a thing, then we need to operate according to the rules of the land. And these are not just old rules, that were invented before the internet and things are different now. No, these are rules that make sense. And if technically it's achievable, then we should by all means abide to them and this is how we grow.
I saw an article recently, it kind of touches on some of the things we've been discussing here in terms of, COTI leading the way in privacy preserving solutions around blockchain. And it mentions a bit about how COTI is redefining standards for privacy preserving blockchain tech through its recent performance benchmarks. I was curious if maybe you could touch on that a little bit and what was kind of being stated there in terms of these performance benchmarks.
Yeah, so obviously performance is important because um, users don't have to do anything Web3. Most of them feel fine, with Web2. So if we want to do anything, then it means that the experience should be as good as it is in Web2. So that means scalability. It means it should be frictionless. The cost shouldn't be high. Essentially, like if you think about something like payments, we can't replace one set of problems like long settlements and expensive transaction costs with another set of problems that derive from blockchain. So for us, the number one important consideration was performance, and like how does our blockchain uh, uh, operate when it comes to confidential transactions. When for standard transactions, I think everybody is doing very well in terms of TPS, etc., and low cost. All the layer twos, the super blockchains, everybody's doing that. That's a standard now. There's no point in talking about this. Back in 2017, that was all the rage, right? We needed that, but now that's a standard, and of course, COTI does that. Now, when it comes to private transactions, we've recently conducted a research. Soda Labs organized that, and we've measured TPS, right? So for confidential transactions, we can do about 60 transactions per second, which is quite high. Like for comparison, I think Zama, which is leading the way when it comes to fully homomorphic encryption. I think they will launch a mainnet towards the end of this year, and it will be at least $1 billion network, right? But their performance is 20 transactions per second if I'm being very generous, and like super expensive, and most will do less. So in terms of performance, we're much faster, and it's not expensive because computation for us is not expensive like it is when it comes to fully homomorphic encryption, and we can do that from a mobile phone, and at low storage, which is also important when it comes to block space. So I think with this decent throughput, privacy on chain is finally ready for consumer scale adoption. And we're paving way. We're working on wallets. So, because that is like the first place where users will meet privacy, I believe. It's the basic send receive, but check that box, and now this transaction is private. So, we're taking the approach of show rather than explain. And we're working with MetaMask, with Mytho wallets, Encrypt, and some others to bring that to their user experience. And as I mentioned, we're working on CBDCs, stablecoins, etc. So this all, the rails will be there for everyone.
And what else is on your guys' roadmap here in 2025? Are you guys have any new announcements or updates or anything people should know about in regards to COTI? And then at the same time, are you guys going to be at any events or conferences or engagements where people can maybe meet up with you and have some conversations and get to know you guys on a first person basis? Or what's the plans this year?
Yeah, let's start with this. I would say that we try to be in most major events. So we will definitely be in 2049 in Singapore, and we spoke earlier about South America. So we will have someone in Buenos Aires as well for DevCon. But other than that, there is an initiative that we run. We run it from Bangkok, but it's a global initiative. It is by definition more focused on Asia, but it is a global initiative. It is being run by Joshua Maddox, and it's called the Stay COTI Initiative. And essentially what we are doing is giving free education and free tools that people that are not developers or just have very little experience can build cool things on top of COTI and beyond. So on the whole vibe coding notion and vibe marketing and vibe creation, we do all of that and we allow people to access that. So that's very easy to find. Just stay.coti.io and people can start building and find their way to grants. Or they can run events with this initiative and get paid. So we're giving a lot of access with that. So that's when it comes to event, and there is live vibe coding events happening quite a lot, and also events happening in Bangkok. If I'm in how to earn from COTI notion, so that's another big thing that is happening. In September, we are launching COTI Earn, which is essentially an initiative that allows, every action or most actions that you do on our network will be rewarded. So think of it like, maybe the mileage on your credit card or like a loyalty plan when you are a citizen of our network. So that's, I think people will love this because, hey, it's earning. Next up, later, I would say probably October is when we launch private tokens and privacy on demand. So essentially, you can vibe code your way into your first private token and then use privacy on demand to take the powers that we give you, but do it on any major chain. So more than 72 chains are supported, and you can build a DApp, say on Solana or Sui or where not, and use our privacy tech stack to do like the stuff that you want confidential on say Solana or Sui, you can do using COTI. And towards the end of the year, we are launching the next generation of our node ecosystem, so the V2 node ecosystem, that massively distribute our network through a node offering, and it makes it, and it's super accessible. Like, you don't need to be techie, you don't need to know how to host and run a node. Essentially, you get a license and you can kind of like operate within our node ecosystem. And again, this is a very, very rewarding experience. I think the most rewarding one that we've offered to date.
Nice, man. Well, it seems like you're quite busy. A lot of things going on and coming out. No, that's great. Keep me updated on everything. Where can people also go to keep up with all of this? Do you guys have a website where maybe you have a blog, or do you have a newsletter? Do you put it all on socials or in a community? Where's the best place to consume everything?
That's nice, because I think, like, I don't know when this will be aired, but like probably 5 minutes ago, like, I just got word that the new website has launched. So COTI.io, COTI.io is the website. New brand, new things. It's nice. You can also find us in X. I think it's the first time I managed not to say Twitter, but you can find us on X at COTI Network. You can find us in Telegram, Telegram/COTI channel. And if you were tied to work, then you can find us on LinkedIn as well, at LinkedIn/COTI-LTD. So yeah, you can find us there.
Awesome. Shahaf, I appreciate you taking the time today and explaining everything that you guys are doing with COTI. And I think it's awesome that you guys are really focused on working on bringing this privacy aspect to blockchain and to users in the ecosystem and to future dApps in the ecosystem. I think it's really important. We need that in order to have this as a really vibrant place to build and create awesome things for people to use and do, and applications. I think people, don't think about it all the time, but privacy, data privacy, and those things are much bigger in our ecosystem than people realize, whether it's at the government level, personal level, corporate level, whether it's medical data, whether it's supply chain data, like, the list goes on and on. So again, appreciate all the work you guys are doing. Let me know what's going on with COTI as things continue to come out on your guys' roadmap, and would love to have you on again at some point and to talk about new updates when they come alive. So keep me posted.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me here today.